Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back. So previously I made a video talking about the possible targets of Pershing Square Tontine, and if you haven't watched that video, please go ahead and watch that video before watching this one. This is actually part 2 of that series. So I'll leave a link down below in the description to that video if you haven't watched it. So I won't waste any time today, so let's just jump into today's topic. Okay, so right after I made part 1 where I talked about Coinbase being one of the possible targets, literally within 24 hours we got the news that Coinbase is actually going to pursue a traditional IPO instead of a SPAC deal. So they're not going to do the SPAC way, they're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So immediately one of my choices on my previous video became invalid. So I kind of feel that I owe it to you guys to make a part 2 and add a couple more candidates to this list. Okay, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. So first of all, the list on the possible merger candidates is Chick-fil-A. So I think most of you have probably heard of Chick-fil-A. If you haven't, they're a fast food chain in the United States, and they're kind of the most well-known fast food chain for chicken sandwiches in the entire country. So in fact, the whole reason why Popeyes decided to get into making their own version of the chicken sandwich, which has been really popular, well, that was because Chick-fil-A was just kind of dominating the entire market and the entire category of chicken sandwiches, and Popeyes just wanted a slice of that sandwich, right? So right now we have two big players that are just kind of battling it out to see who can make the best chicken sandwich. And I think that people are relatively divided on this actually. So on one hand, you have Chick-fil-A, who's kind of the OG when it comes to chicken sandwiches, but Popeyes is really well loved too. So maybe they can both succeed, right? Maybe the market is big enough for both of them to really succeed in this category. Now, granted, I haven't gone to a Chick-fil-A recently because last time I went, it was maybe around February of this year. So you know, that was when the pandemic was really hitting hard in Asia. And this was before the pandemic really hit hard here. And social distancing wasn't that big of a deal yet. So I went to the Yorkdale Mall location. And let me just tell you, that place is completely packed, okay? So when Chick-fil-A first came to Toronto, it's just absolutely insane. So there's only 2 locations in Toronto as far as I'm aware right now. So there's one at Yonge and Bloor, and there's one that I went to, which is the Yorkdale Mall one. And every time I go to the Chick-fil-A at Yorkdale Mall, it's absolutely packed. So everyone was shoulder to shoulder because remember, this was pre-pandemic, and the restaurant is kind of on like a second floor area. So you ever been to Yorkdale, you would know what I'm talking about, right? So it's on like a second floor area, the whole food court is. So you have to go up this like set of escalators to kind of get to the food court, and the lineup started on the first floor. So the lineup was so long that you had to line up before the escalators to get to the second floor. So you can't even line up in the food court. You have to line up to get into the food court before you can order from Chick-fil-A. And they have like security guards watching the line to make sure that no one cuts the line. And yeah, there was just that many people, right? So it's actually a bit of a lie to say that I went to Chick-fil-A because I didn't end up actually going because me and my friends, we saw the line and we were like, yeah, no. So the lineup would have been at least an hour, and we saw the line, we were like, holy crap, people are willing to wait an hour for a chicken sandwich. And it was not like it was on sale or something like that. In fact, it's pretty expensive, okay? So here in Canada, it's 6 Canadian rupees for the original sandwich. And if you want a combo or if you want the deluxe sandwich, well, obviously that's going to be more money, right? So we didn't even get to eat Chick-fil-A that day, but I have tried it before when I was on vacation in America, and I gotta say that it is really good. So after my last video came out, a lot of you were asking me why there are so many choices for restaurant chains in the list. So here I am talking about another restaurant chain, right? Well, it's because Bill Ackman, who runs Pershing Square Tontine, has a history of investing in fast food or quick service restaurants as they're known. So in case you didn't know, Bill Ackman's hedge fund, Pershing Square Capital Management, which is not to be confused with this SPAC, which is his hedge fund. So his hedge fund actually owns 9.6% of QSR, which is Restaurant Brands International. So they own Burger King, Tim Hortons, and Popeyes. So they're the parent organization of those 3. And earlier this year, it was revealed that Ackman sold his shares in Starbucks only to reinvest $720 million back into Starbucks once again, just a couple months later when we had that huge crash earlier in the year. Lastly, Ackman himself said that with Pershing Square Tontine, he's really trying to focus on mature unicorns and family-run businesses. And of course, Chick-fil-A is a prime example of a family-run business. So the chain was founded by a gentleman named S. Truett Cathy in 1946, and the current CEO is a son of Mr. S. Truett Cathy, who passed on after the business after Cathy died in 2014. And one thing of note, though, is that the founder and the whole family that runs Chick-fil-A are very religious individuals. So as a result, Chick-fil-A does not open on Sundays, since it is a Sabbath, for Christians at least. And also over the years, Chick-fil-A has been receiving a bit of criticism for being very anti-LGBT. So not going to get into that controversy. I just want to eat a chicken sandwich sometimes without getting embroiled in politics, right? How hard is that, right? I don't know, maybe 21st century problems. But I'm just letting you guys know that this is a thing, and this can become a liability for the company if the company ever decides to go public, as they will be put on more public scrutiny if they're a public company, right? So just bringing that up so that you guys are well aware. Although what's interesting about Chick-fil-A from a business perspective about closing its doors on Sundays is that you would think that this would hurt the company because they only operate 6 days a week as opposed to everyone else who's open 7 days a week. However, this has actually been benefiting them because it artificially creates a sense of urgency and scarcity surrounding their products. So by now, most people are well aware that Chick-fil-A is only open 6 days a week, right? They're closed on Sundays. So if you're thinking, I wanted to get a chicken sandwich, I better go soon because otherwise it's going to be Sunday and it's going to be closed. And also, if you ever wanted to get a chicken sandwich and you realize that it's Sunday and you can't, well, that's going to motivate you to go to Chick-fil-A next time. So it kind of creates this like artificial feeling of unfulfilled desire, right? So in fact, I remember reading this story somewhere that airports actually have to make an exception for Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A wants to close on Sundays, and because usually restaurants are not allowed to close on weekends or anything like that because, well, it's an airport, right? You have people walking around and like buying food at all hours of the day and coming in and out at all hours of the day every single day, including weekends and holidays. So it's kind of an inconvenience if a restaurant closes on Sundays. However, Chick-fil-A is so powerful that they're so well loved that airports are willing to accommodate their Sunday closure rule and make an exception specifically for them and not for anyone else. So this is a really good sign from a business perspective because that's a textbook definition of bargaining power. And it's clear to see that Chick-fil-A has the upper hand when it comes to bargaining power and these types of negotiations as to where to kind of put their restaurants. Anyways, I think that Chick-fil-A will be a real winner if Pershing Square managed to merge with them. Moving on though, so next up on the list is Fidelity Investments. Now, a while back, there were rumors that Pershing Square was going to merge with Robinhood, but those rumors have been proven untrue, as well as Robinhood has also confirmed to be seeking a traditional IPO as opposed to a SPAC IPO. But I think that Fidelity would actually be a good candidate and is kind of like the anti-Robinhood. So Robinhood is kind of like the new kid on the block, and the main appeal is to younger investors and more beginner investors, whereas Fidelity has been in the game for decades and decades. In fact, it was founded in 1946. So nowadays, brokerages in America have all eliminated commission fees. So, you know, Christ and Canadian. So arguably, Fidelity is way more feature complete and reliable compared to Robinhood. You know, Robinhood has had their own set of controversies regarding reliability and things like that. So, you know, you can look into it if you don't believe me, but I'll just leave that there. So Fidelity relatively, I think, has a little bit better of a reputation as being more reliable. And for example, also, if you wanted to buy Pershing Square Tontine warrants, so not the stock, but the warrants, you can't even buy them on Robinhood because it's not supported. So if we're looking at the product itself, I say that when it comes to brokerages, Fidelity is probably a better brokerage compared to Robinhood. And it's just that, you know, maybe their app doesn't look as nice as Robinhood. And don't forget that Fidelity isn't just brokerage services. So they actually have a lot of wealth management for high net worth clients. And they also have mutual funds. And in fact, they're one of the largest asset management companies in the entire world with $3.3 trillion of assets under management. So that's absolutely insane. So I didn't even know that before researching this video. So I think that all in all, Fidelity would be a big hit if they do want to go public through Pershing Square. Don't know if they'd be up for it though. So anyways, I want to spend some time on targets right now that I think that would be kind of flops if they were the target. I mean, I don't mean to sound negative, but I think that some of these companies are great companies, but I just don't think that they're quite good enough or famous enough to really get people excited enough. And I think that a lot of people will be disappointed if the target was any of these. So I'm actually going to name a whole category, and I feel like if it's anything from this category, it's going to be a flop, even though that the company themselves are maybe nice companies, but you'll see in a sec. So this category is gas station convenience stores. So I'm talking about companies like Quick Trip, Wawa, Pilot Flying J, and Love's Travel Shops, etc., things like that. So again, nothing against these companies. I think that these are all great companies, but I just don't think that the gas station convenience store idea is quite sexy enough to get the hype train going for something like a Pershing Square. I mean, in the very beginning, we were talking about Airbnb before they went their public IPO route through the traditional means, right? So we're talking about Airbnb being a candidate, and then it went to Bloomberg, and then it went to Stripe, and then it went to Coinbase and Robinhood, and none of those worked out. So if we settle for something like a Pilot Flying J, I'm just saying, right? I feel like people are going to see it as a letdown. And talking about letdowns, I think that if it was any of the grocery stores, it would also be kind of a letdown. So I'm talking about Publix and Wegmans. Again, I think that these are both great companies, but it's just missing that like oomph factor, you know? It's just missing that cool factor. So one exception to this category of grocery stores that I think won't be a flop would be Trader Joe's. Except it won't be Trader Joe's because Trader Joe's is actually owned by a German company called Aldi. And I think that Bill Ackman is mainly focusing on American companies. But yeah, if it was Trader Joe's, which it won't be, but if it was, that's the only grocery store that I think that is actually cool enough to be suitable for Pershing Square. Alright, last category that I think will be kind of a flop if Pershing Square were to merge with any company that's considered a boring company. So I'm not talking about Elon Musk's boring company. That would be amazing. That would be great. But that's never going to happen though. No, I'm talking about like an actual like uninteresting company. That's what I mean. So an example that comes to mind would be something, for example, like Cargill, who is apparently the largest privately held American company by revenue. Yeah, never even heard of this company before I started doing research for this video, to be quite honest. But apparently they do trading, purchasing, and distributing grain and other agricultural commodities, such as palm oil. And they also trade in energy, steel, transport, and there's also a bunch of other stuff. Basically, it's just a giant conglomerate that does everything under the sun. And actually, I feel like Cargill would actually be too big for Pershing Square or any SPAC to merge with them, to be quite honest. But my point is that if they just end up picking something that's just a giant conglomerate that has no like particular focus or no particular thing that's really interesting about them, it might be kind of a flop. I don't know, we'll have to see, right? So leave a comment down below and let me know what you guys think, whether or not you think that any of the companies I presented in this list, whether you agree with me it's going to be a flop, or do you think that it's going to be actually really successful or something like that. Or be sure to also tell me what your ideal list of targets are, and what maybe like a more realistic list of targets are. So be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed the video as well, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.